Good evening and welcome to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen Workshop. It is September 30th, 2021. It is 6:30 p.m. Call this meeting to order. We do have a quorum. The prayer on Tuesday night will be by Alderman Waldron. The Pledge of Allegiance will be by myself. You should all have a copy of the minutes from the public hearing as well as the regular meeting. First, we're going to go to presentations. Chief Beasley, can I have you for just a moment? A few firefighters and family. National Fire Protection Week is coming up. So wanted to present Chief Beasley with a proclamation for the city of Laverne that urges people to learn the sounds of fire safety for Fire Prevention Week. Chief, would you like to speak about Fire Prevention Week?
Outstanding, thank you, I appreciate it. Again, it is the focus this year is to know the sounds of fire safety. Fire departments all across the state of Tennessee are working with the state fire marshal's office. We primarily focus on the elementary school kids, so each one of the schools in Laverne this year have got a program, part of their curriculum, to where they're tested, pre-tested, then they're delivered material, then they'll be retested to see what they've learned about fire safety, and it focuses on smoke alarms, carbon monoxide detectors. So it's a great impact on the young people that we know come home and teach us.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. So, but thank you, sir.
Oh, thank you.
And then don't run off.
I'm not.
The next we have some pinnings.
Yes, sir, that's correct. All right, gentlemen, if I could get our four new hires come over. We've had a busy year this year in hiring and training and bringing on new firefighters, and we're exceptionally proud of this group. It's a young group of very eager, hard-working firefighters, and we believe they're going to make a great impact for the city of Laverne. First, talk with Sean Davenport. I'm just going to pin your badge.
Where you at, Dad? Come here. Don't stab me.
Good job, young man.
Mason Lovell. Who's pinning for you?
My mom.
Mom. Mom, you've spent a little bit of time investing in that, had you? Oh. Jeffrey Johnson? Who's gonna pin you, bud?
My wife.
Congratulations.
I'm ready to stab you now.
Last one will be Richie Smith. Congratulations.
Thanks, sir.
Who's this? The what?
My wife.
Congratulations, ma'am. All right, last thing we'll do is we'll swear you all in. Do this. Picture that. I. Do it again. I. Do solemnly swear. That I will faithfully execute my duties as a firefighter to the city of Laverne. And I will do the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution and the laws of the United States and state and the charter and ordinances of this city. So help me God. I stand. Congratulations, George.
Good job, fellas. Two more sometime soon? I don't think so.
All right, moving on to the leaf collection program. Mr. Leach, is that going to be you or Miss Alexandra?
I'll fill in when she gets stuck, but she'll handle everything else. Come on, Alex.
Hello, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Aldermen. Thanks for letting me come talk to you today. Super excited to talk about our new leaf litter collection program. Can y'all hear me? Just kidding. I'm pretty loud, but okay. So to start, why are we doing it in general? What's the point? Leaf litter can cause a lot of different issues related to stormwater. The biggest one really being that it clogs up our storm drains and makes it really hard for water to flow the way it's supposed to. So if we can kind of pull them out before that happens, that would be really beneficial. And it'll also help us with water quality. Sometimes leaves carry things that we don't necessarily want in the water, like like pesticides or fertilizers. So getting those before they can get in the water is definitely best. And so when are we going to be doing this? The plan is to go from October 25th through November 30th. And that's the really estimated dates. We don't know exactly when the leaves are going to fall, but that is when we're going to start. It might go a little bit later if for some reason there's an emergency and the crew has to do something else, or if one of the routes takes a super extra long time because there are tons of leaves, then that might need to adjust a little bit. And the plan is to hit every single residential street in the city of Laverne, starting from the western portion of Laverne going towards the east, so starting in like Pinnacle Point or the Ridge, and then going up to Lake Forest at the end. And then it's recommended that residents have their leaves outside as early as possible, so if they can before October 25th, just to make sure that their leaves do get picked up, just because once they make the route through your street, they cannot come back. Because if we went back for everybody, it would take us 50 years probably to get all of the leaves picked up. And then, is there anybody that's excluded from leaf pickup? So we're not gonna be able to go down any of the roads with no outlets, just because it's actually just a trailer on the back of a truck, and if we can't get it turned around, then that would be really unfortunate. So we have to make sure it's safe for the crew and that we don't hit anybody's mailboxes. That would be terrible. And then there are some particular rules about how the leaves need to be put out, just to make sure that we can do it in a timely manner and that, again, it's safe for everybody. So, and I'll kind of go through each of the rules and say why we have them. And these are kind of borrowed from some either other municipalities that are doing a similar program or companies that are doing something similar. So we kind of drew from a bunch of different places to make sure we could do it the best we could. The first rule being that the leaves actually have to be raked. They can't just be scattered all over the place near the ditches. Like, they have to be in a pile so that we can get to them quickly and easily. If the crew has to go through and rake everybody's leaves, again, it would take us a really, really long time to get everything done and everybody won't get served. And then the leaves need to be less than 5 feet away from the edge of the road. So, and a good trick for that is if you have the rake and you lay it down right there next to the road, the rake should reach the leaves, because if not, then the vacuum won't actually reach the leaves and they'll have to rake them anyway. So that's important. And then we can't have brush or garbage in the leaf pile, mostly just because we plan on composting this at some point so that we can have more dirt. And if there's a bunch of things in it that are not leaves that could really break the truck, and we don't want to do that either. It's a really nice piece of equipment. And then the leaves can't be piled on gravel or rock, because first, that could be dangerous for the crew if rocks were slung all over the place, and we don't want that to break the machine either. We don't want the leaves in the storm drains or in the ditches. That's actually exactly what we're trying to avoid. So if we could have people not put them there, that would be absolutely best. And then do not place your leaves within 15 feet of property like cars. If the crew feels uncomfortable getting the leaves without hitting a vehicle that you have parked in front of them, then they're not going to be able to. We don't want to hurt your property, our property, or anybody on the staff. And then finally, I know I said it a little bit earlier, but I feel like it is worth stating again that if we end up driving past and your leaves are not out, they cannot come back for you after, just because it wouldn't be fair if we could do that for one person and not everybody. And then if you have citizens that have any questions, the best place to send them really is either to me or to the website. There's a special page on the Laverne City website that has all of the information and pictures of specific ways that the leaves have to be placed. And there's also a list of the no outlet streets that are on there, so everybody can find that if they need it. Does anybody have any questions?
Yes, ma'am. So
Yes.
for the residents who live on those no outlet streets,
Yes.
if they have leaves that they would like to have picked up, what can they do to possibly coordinate with you guys?
So if they would just give me a call, we can kind of work, it'll be on a citizen by citizen basis, just depending on what, if they have bags or if they have something else. Like, we'll find something that they can do since they're not gonna be able to be part of this program. So we'll find something for them. They just have to give me a ring.
Will they be able to get those biodegradable bags and put them in it, or just strictly in a pile?
For the people that are on the no outlet streets,
No,
or
just
everybody?
people in general.
If they put them in bag, oh, I guess I might have skipped over that one. Leaves cannot be bagged just because the truck can't pick up bags, and we won't have another thing like a trailer to put them in or anything. So if they bag them, they'll probably have to dispose of them themselves. So we can only really do the piled up leaves.
So residents should just rake them together in a pile, 5 feet from the road, for y'all to vacuum up.
5 feet or less, yeah. 5 is ideal.
So if people that live, and I'm just trying to cover the bases,
Yeah,
because
for
you're
sure.
gonna get asked.
Yeah.
The people that live in Lake Forest, they don't necessarily need to jump in on October the 25th and start getting all that stuff ready.
They don't have to. They could wait a little bit longer. It just isn't they don't know exactly what date we're going to be there. So if they wait, we will probably get to them later. We just can't assign specific dates to every neighborhood because we cannot reliably predict when we'll be able to get there.
Similar to the brush truck, where the brush
Yeah.
truck, there's no specific time frame. It's working its way through the city.
Exactly. And this is really a pilot year for this kind of. We may have to do another route again later in the winter, like if leaves fall again. And we also in the future might change the dates, push them a little bit later, but I wanted to give us enough buffer time just in case it took a little bit longer before the holidays and all of that stuff.
Could you explain what you do with the leaves and what you stock up in the truck? What happens next?
From what I understand, I haven't seen it done yet, but
I'll
okay,
cover
Adam
this.
knows.
So our leaf collection trailer is a big vacuum with a grinder on it, essentially. So the leaves get sucked up wherever they're left. They get mulched into a pretty fine powder. Essentially, it'll basically be dust by the time they're done. We'll designate some property for now that's currently within the city. We'll collect it there, basically leave it in a pile, let nature take its course. We'll buy some earthworms, throw that in the pile, let them do what they do. Hopefully 3 to 5 years from now, we'll have a pretty good source of organic compost for use throughout the city with some of the other programs that we're doing, like our rainwater or rain gardens that we're looking to do. But basically, we're trying to keep everything out of the streams to prevent eutrophication, and by us composting it, it's out of the stream, and if we have good enough participation in the program, hopefully, once it kind of turns into compost, we can release that back out into the city for people to use in their gardens and stuff. But that'll be, one, depending on how much we get, and two, depending on just managing the logistics of that type of thing.
I think this is a great idea. I was a little surprised at the number that just used 3 to 5 years. I guess I was kind of hoping it'd be quicker, but it makes sense, and I know that. But I think it's a great idea.
I think it'll be fun.
Who's in charge of that? Garland? No?
Be Miss Alexandra.
You gonna drive the truck?
Scott Anderson is gonna be leading the crew that'll go
Okay.
back there. Yeah, I don't know if he'll be driving the truck, but
So definitely something the citizens need to know about so they can,
yeah. And if, I know Ann has put some stuff on social media, if you want to share any of those posts. And then, I don't know if it's in your packets, but there's this really cute thing that I made,
Yeah.
that if you want to post that anywhere, you can. I just was feeling really creative when I did that. But feel free to use that. And then there'll probably be other social media posts coming and stuff as well that you can share.
well, I'm sure there's gonna be 1,000 questions.
Yeah.
But you've already said we'll just give them your number.
Yeah, for sure. Just pass them to me.
Yeah, and just as a reminder, this is our pilot year, so Alex has done a great job putting the routes together, kind of putting all the logistics in place for the program, but we 100% do not totally know what we're doing right now. We know how the equipment works, we know how to drive the truck, I have people that can, operate everything, but as far as, how much participation we have, how much, actual leaf litter we get, we can't judge that because we've never done it in this city before, and we can't compare it to anybody else because, there's a few other cities in Middle Tennessee that offer a similar service, but not very many. Franklin's just firing up on theirs. Obviously, this is free to the citizens, so it's going to be, we're all going to learn this together, and, I would love for this to be a kumbaya, come together moment, but inevitably we're going to drive past somebody's house. They're going to be mad at us, and we're going to deal with that as we can. But just so you know, it'll probably not go great to start, but we'll learn our lessons, incorporate those, and do better next year.
Alex, you mentioned that if people have questions, they can call you. For people who are watching this video on YouTube a few days from now, what's that phone number that they can call?
Ooh, okay, let's make sure I have it memorized. My name is Alexandra Thompson, and my phone number is 615-287-8658. That's my desk phone. I'm really
So
proud of
Adam-
myself that I had that memorized, actually.
Adam mentioned you don't have much to go by, but what few cities that do this, have you all talked with them or anything, or are we just going into it?
I personally haven't spoken with them. I've seen the logistics that a lot of companies have used when they've done it, and that's not even necessarily in Middle Tennessee. Some of them are just across the nation, and they're doing it with similar rules. I don't know necessarily how their routes work. I think some people do it more based on if you call, we'll go pick it up. But I think that might be more time consuming for us to do it that way rather than to dedicate just a certain chunk of time. Because if they have to set up the leaf truck and go out every single day, that might take 2 hours
Okay.
every day rather than just these 6 weeks.
Any other questions?
You mentioned you don't want the leaves in the ditch. Well, the people who has the wide ditches that's over 5 foot, and what do they need to do?
It probably should be okay for them if they go on either closer to the road or they go behind. Since there's not a ton of people with the super humongous ditches right there, if they go in a neat line right behind it, the vacuum should be able to pick it up. So just make sure they're not, if they're gonna squish them all up, to squish them all up this way instead of that way, so that the vacuum hose can get to it, is the goal.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, guys.
I just think it's a great idea, Alex. Good job.
We're excited. I hope people like it and that they don't get too upset about certain things. But Thank you.
Thank you. Tuesday night, we will have department reports. Then moving on to old business, second reading ordinance 2021-15, an ordinance to amend the City of Laverne zoning ordinance by changing the official zoning map for tax map 14, parcel 24, consisting of approximately 10 acres located at 147 Jones Mill Road, from a R1 low-density residential zoning district to a R2 medium-density residential zoning district. This received a favorable recommendation from the Planning Commission on May 25th, 2021. Does anyone have any questions?
I still, personally, I'm gonna stick by my guns on this. I know it's not a lot of homes. I know that it's only gonna be probably 25 or 30 vehicles. But until that area is worked out there, I just can't put my name on this.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Okay. Moving on to number 5, second reading ordinance 2021-24, an ordinance to amend the City of Laverne zoning ordinance by changing the official zoning map for a portion of tax map 15, parcel 13.01, consisting of approximately 0.89 acres located at the rear of 5001 Murfreesboro Road, from a C2 highway service commercial zoning district to a C3 neighborhood service commercial zoning district. This received a favorable recommendation from the Planning Commission on July 27th, 2021. Does anyone have any questions?
So I've had a few questions about this, and I tried to explain it, but the last meeting, Bruce explained it very eloquently. And Bruce, could you explain it again, the difference in what can go and what can't go in a 2 and 3 to the citizens that'll be watching this?
Yes, sir. In the C3 zoning district, the following uses are permitted. Generally recognized retail business which supplies commodities on the premises for persons residing in adjacent residential areas such as groceries, meats, dairy products, baked goods, or other foods, cafes, drugs, dry goods, and notions or hardware and gas stations. Number 2 is personal service establishment, which performs services on the premises such as repair shops, including radio, television, shoes, etc., beauty parlors or barber shops, and self-service laundries. Talks about signs. Number 4 is upper story residential dwellings. And number 5 is convenience store sales. So those are the uses that are allowed in this proposed zoning district.
All right, you do a much better job than I tried. Thank you, sir.
Any other questions or comments on this? Moving on then to second reading, ordinance 2021-25, an ordinance to amend Title 8, Chapter 1 of the Laverne Municipal Code regarding intoxicating liquors, package stores. And this was discussed last month. This is essentially, the state has made some changes to state law, and this is getting our ordinances in line with the state. Is there any questions? Seeing none, let's move on to second reading, ordinance 2021-26, an ordinance to amend the fiscal year 2021-2022 general fund budget. And this was again discussed last month. This is dealing with a couple different budget items: city hall buildings, police transportation equipment, parks machinery. Does anyone have any questions? Seeing none, moving on to second reading, ordinance 2021-27, an ordinance to amend the fiscal year 2021-2022 drug fund budget. Does anyone have any questions on this? Moving on to the consent agenda. A, approve city bids and purchases. Ms. Felicia.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Alderman. I'm just before you to save you a little bit of money. We've got several copiers that are up for renewal. Parks is ready to throw theirs out. They've been called every week for the last several months. So we would be saving approximately $5,900 a year if we go with this. Our maintenance will drop from $50 a month to $37.50 a month. They will still provide all toners, color and black. It's on the GSA contract, so I don't see, this is kind of a win-win for us. And actually, finance gets to quit paying for one altogether.
Gotta take care of finance. Does anyone have any questions? Okay,
Okay.
Number two is approve quote from Stewart's Creek Television to record and live stream the city's Parade of Lights on December 11th, 2021. This is to allow the high school television group to produce and record our Parade of Lights and live stream it. It'll be posted on YouTube as well as on Channel 3. Anyone have any questions? Personally, I say I'm glad to see that partnership. I know we've got a good portion of the city that has students that go there, and it's great to see them get involved. B, approve ratification of settlement agreement with Renita Eskening. And this is in front of you. Does anyone have any questions? Moving on to approve grant contract with the State of Tennessee Department of Military, Tennessee Emergency Management Agency for the Community Safe Room Project. And this is phase 2. This is phase 1 still. Phase 2 will hopefully be approved, but this amount is $33,294.79. Does anyone have any questions? Moving on to D, approved contract with Nashville Party Authority to provide DJ services for the Zombie Night event on October 22nd, 2021. This is a Parks and Recreation event. Does anyone have any questions?
What's the cost of that?
Per the summary sheet in your packet, $300. Any other questions? Moving on to E, approve program-funded state and local task force agreement with the United States Department of Justice Drug Enforcement Administration to continue participation in the Middle Tennessee Drug Enforcement Task Force. Does anyone have any questions about this? Moving on to F, approve grant contract with the State of Tennessee Department of Safety and Homeland Security for the Police Traffic Services Project. And with this, the city will be reimbursed up to $50,000 to conduct operations. Does anyone have any questions? Moving on to G, approve a proposal for engineering services from Griggs and Maloney Incorporated for the 2022 Water Storage Tank Improvements Project.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Aldermen. Hope you all have been doing well. Thank you for the opportunity to present this proposal tonight. This is for the engineering services agreement related to the 2022 Water Storage Tank Improvements Project, which is for the Sanders Drive and Sanford Knob concrete tanks. The primary scope of the improvements will include the exterior crack repairs, coating of the tank exterior and dome roof, an interior tank cleanout and inspection, coating of the overflow pipe that is on the tank interiors, coordination of temporary relocations of the cellular and SCADA antenna equipments that are mounted on top of the tanks currently. The engineering services for this will include the development of the construction contract documents, technical specifications and plans to be submitted to TDEC for review and approval, and then assisting with the bidding process, and then the construction oversight services. I think this project was in the budget for this year. I think, are there any questions?
This is, when it comes to the Sanders tank, there's 2 tanks up there. This is for one of the tanks, not both of the tanks. Is that
That's
right?
correct. There's a 2 million gallon concrete tank. It's for that one. The 1 million gallon steel tank was painted, I think, around 2016. And so this is for the other one that's up there.
And I don't know if this might be a Kyle question to piggyback with, but is there a way that we can include with this repainting of both of those tanks at the same time? Because what winds up happening out there is you have one tank that looks pretty rough and one tank that doesn't.
I think we'd have to do that in the future. As of right now, the steel tank, just got coated a few years ago. I don't think it would be worthwhile to recoat that again at this point in time. I do think in the future, though, that when it gets time to paint the steel tank again, maybe go ahead and do the concrete, even if it still could last a few more years. That way, like you say, they're both done at the same time, so it's consistent. Because if you've been out there, which I can tell you have, and you've looked at the concrete tank, it looks very rough compared to even though it's been a few years, freshly painted steel tank beside it. So it makes it a whole lot more noticeable that how bad that concrete looks.
Right. Garland, you live right out there. It's in your backyard. You see it as well. That as someone who lives there, it doesn't look nice for the neighborhood to have one that's pretty worn and one that looks almost new.
Sure. Certainly
So,
understand.
Has there ever been any talk, or maybe I don't remember, has there ever been anything brought up about putting something on those tanks, like a Laverne logo or something kind of snazzy or cheesy, whatever? I know a lot of cities have that,
That's totally up to this board. I mean, you can, it's just an additional cost.
I think we've looked at it before, but for the most part, the line of sight for it has made it, I guess, questionable if it was
Okay.
worth doing.
That was my
but,
next question about the line of sight. Yeah.
And I think the steel tank, did it not have City of Laverne on it years and years ago?
It may have.
I think it did at one point in time.
But I think the trees behind it have grown
Yes.
up so much now that you can't see it from that side of it. But of course,
I-
the neighborhood side you could.
Right.
That may be something for the future with the one over off of Blair, and we're talking about the possibilities of another one eventually going out there. With all of the construction going on out there, it makes them a lot more visible, and that may be something as well to do.
Will you be able to see it from the interstate, or too early to tell?
Too early to tell right now. Right now you can, but there, as you've seen through there,
You're right.
there's a lot of dirt work going on. But does anyone have any questions about this? Seeing none, we're going to move on to H, approve software as a service agreement with Blue Dot Technologies for BR&E software for the Economic Development Department. Does anyone have any questions about this? Seeing none, moving on to I, approve proposal from Motorola for Flex software data conversion for the police department. Does anyone have any questions? Moving on to J, approve property assessor's reappraisal cost sharing agreement. And the city currently pays the property assessor's office once every 4 years for reappraisals for the property in Laverne. This is basically a big budget expense that hits us all at once. And so the county is proposing that all the cities in Rutherford County pay their share of these expenses on an annual basis. So this will help with the budgeting of the costs every year, since instead of it just being one big hit at once, it's now broken up over 4 years. Does anyone have any questions? Moving on to new business. First reading ordinance 2021-28, an ordinance to amend the City of Laverne zoning ordinance by changing the official zoning map for tax map 14F, Group A, parcels 1.01, and tax map 14, parcels 36, 36.01, and 36.02, consisting of approximately 8 acres located adjacent to 301 Bill Stewart Boulevard, from a R1 low-density residential zoning district to a PDR planned density residential zoning district with an R2 medium density residential based zoning district. This received a favorable recommendation at the Planning Commission on August 31st, 2021. Is there any questions?
There again, I just feel like out in that area, anything extra is just going to be a nightmare until all of that's fixed out there. I know it's repetitious with me, but I just feel strong about it.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? First reading ordinance 2021-29, an ordinance to amend Title II of the Laverne Municipal Code by adding a new Chapter 9 entitled Laverne Beautification and Arts Advisory Committee. Does anyone have any questions about this? First reading ordinance 2021-30, an ordinance to amend the fiscal year 2021-2022 general fund budget. Should have this in your packet. This will account for the recent bond that was issued and was completed. The city will incur an additional amount of interest, and that we will have to pay because the recent bond issue. This ordinance accounts for the additional proceeds from this bond sale, increases our fund balance by $17,195,202. This will be used for various projects. The additional bond entrance to be paid is $309,882. Does anyone have any questions about this? Resolution 2021-28, a resolution to authorize the city attorney to take action to achieve clarity with respect to ownership of cemeteries and to enforce the city's property maintenance ordinances, codes, and other applicable laws. Does anyone have any questions about this? I know we discussed a lot of this with the planning retreat.
Have we've started looking for these owners and stuff?
Mr. Vice Mayor, I'll let Cal comment on that. He gets most of the flack when people call in about the cemetery, so.
Oh, okay.
We basically have what records we can find as far as deeds and stuff like that. We do know that. That's kind of, we have made that progress. We just got to get that over to Evan, which at that point that's what this is for, is pretty much to get a judgment on who is the owner and who is responsible for it, because like we stated, the city does not own any of the cemeteries in the city, yet there are several that we have to mow and maintain due to just various reasons. So this is what we're trying to do is make sure that we're not responsible for the mowing and maintenance, that who is the owners are actually responsible for it, and it's not on the taxpayers.
And just to follow up on what Kyle said, the purpose also behind the resolution is once we start to dig on some of these things, we really don't know what we're going to find, or what we'll need to do to get clarity on that. And so we just want the flexibility that if we need to go to court and ask the judge to determine who actually owns it, so we know who to assess the cost to, and at least that option's on the table for us.
So you've not personally had any kind of interaction just yet with any owners?
We have probably had, or Randolph's probably had, and so is Garland and different ones. That's the ones who normally would get calls to maintain stuff if we know the owner. The ones that we're talking about is the ones that there is not an official listed, this is the property owner, and that's why we're going through this process, is because we have the deeds and we can go back and figure out that it's this family or that family, but it's still not a explicit, that is the owner who owns and maintains this. So that's what this whole purpose is for, is to where we don't end up in that vicious cycle that we've talked about, is a codes complaint will come in or a complaint to streets about this area or this cemetery needs to be upkept and maintained. It's not ours. We go in and try to find, or they try to find the owner. We don't know for sure who the owner truly is. So it always goes back to the city because it's just like any property. If we can't get the owner to mow it or maintain it, the city ends up having to have the lawn service do that. And it's at the expense of the taxpayer. So that's kind of what we're trying to get out of that cycle is basically this is on these cemeteries that we don't have a clear understanding of who the owner is. We have a decent understanding, but it's not for sure. We're trying to get that clarity.
A lot of them cemeteries, like the family cemetery, like the one on, Walden Road, the old Hartman Cemetery, the people who really had the deed to that cemetery it's been passed for a long time. I don't know what y'all do when y'all get to that point, when the people who owned it is passed away. Does it go to the kids?
That's a great question. It's really sort of an interesting area of the law that I didn't know a lot about until we started digging into it. But somebody has to own the cemetery. So when property is conveyed or transferred and it contains a cemetery on it, technically, even if the person purchasing the property doesn't want it, they then own the cemetery, and then they become responsible for maintaining it and everything that goes along with it. A lot of times, people, when they convey real estate, will try to deal with that and carve it out, but the law says you can't do that. So, so I don't know if that answers your question, other than to say that, yeah, people who may have owned it at one time may be long gone, but somebody owns that property at this point in time, and those people would be responsible. Finding out who that is part of the hard work that we're anticipating maybe having to deal with. But it's a great question.
So if a developer buys a property and it's got a cemetery on it, the developer is responsible for the cemetery. If he develops it and it has a homeowner association, does the homeowner association take over?
Under that set of facts, assuming that there was no carve-out or any other arrangement made for that cemetery, because you can make other arrangements for the care and maintenance of the cemetery that would trump that. But as a general rule, if the property on which the cemetery lies or is a part of is conveyed to somebody else, whoever it's conveyed to is responsible for it.
This is and we've talked about it before, this is a huge, broad, thin line involving codes and everything and a lot of ifs. So my if question would be, if you actually run down the owner and he or she or them have never even considered taking care of it because the city has always been there for them, but you definitely know that they are the owner, 100% you know that. And they just throw their hands up and don't do it. I guess Randolph's department sends out notices.
Most likely.
And is it treated like you said, in will come a company that will mow that? And then my understanding is the city pays that company, and then that's it. There's no liens or it's just money gone. Is that?
Well, we don't currently have a company that we contract with that we had one at one point that essentially did not show up once they understood the scope of the work. I would think this would follow similar to residential tall grass. It would be cited. If they don't respond to that citation and get the property in line, it would then go to city court, and then that person will be cited to court.
It's just one of those projects we have to tackle, and got to move forward with it and start finding out who owns each cemetery.
One question I have, and some of these old cemeteries, it's gonna be a hard time finding who actually owns it. Tracing back the deed. A lot of them cemeteries probably didn't have a deed to it.
I can say 100% clarity that I've got a deed, not stating who owns it, but that involves every cemetery we got. So we have at least got a starting point that I'm pretty sure we're going to track down most of these fairly simply.
Evan, get busy, that's all I can
I
tell
know the Hartman Cemetery on Walden Road, the Mr. Paul over at the Paul property, at one time, he had the deed to it, but now he's been dead for 60 years.
Right, but all deeds are recorded at the Register of Deeds office in the county. So once we started looking into this, like I said, we've at least got a trail of either deeds or properties around it that mention it, that there should be enough information to go off of to at least trace where it was last. And kind of going by state law, what Evan was saying is you can't convey, so if I was a developer and I bought an area, 30 or 40 acres, and it had a cemetery on it, I can't just buy it, develop the whole thing, and then leave the cemetery to somebody else without them knowing. It's still that developer's cemetery at that point, unless they took the proper actions during the platting, during the whole process of turning it over to the HOA or to an HOA. So there's a lot of things that's got to be done, but like I said, I think we've got enough information that we can make a good start on where do we need to go to figure this out.
And ultimately, the property is owned by somebody. It's just making that connection and making them aware of their responsibility versus it being on the taxpayers.
Are we going through some kind of something like Kyle just talked about with Pinnacle Point out there, something?
Pinnacle Point does have a cemetery, and
But we know the owner for that.
well, I would say that's one of them that's gonna,
Yeah.
is it the developers, is it not, I don't know. I do know that the property was bought, and it contained a cemetery on it, and it was developed, and there's still a cemetery there that nobody maintains, that they contact. Last time someone, I think, drove of course, it was an accident, they wrecked, and a car went through it, but they was asking the city to replace the fence and do some work to the headstones there, and then also mow and maintain it. Now, I know some phone calls were made, and the family that had some people there, they think they took ownership and responsibility for it. But I don't know for a fact whether that would be the family that would be the true owner of it or not. I just would say that they have family there and probably are doing, you know, what they think is the responsible thing to do. Is you got family there, you need to upkeep the cemetery. So.
But I brought that up because wasn't there some discussion with the city about the HOA was supposed to take care of it to?
Oh, that's something completely different. That's a detention pond, not cemeteries. So,
Well, no, I know about the pond, but I thought that some of the homeowners out there or somebody had discussed it. But anyway, good luck, Evan, Kyle. Garland, keep them.
number 14, appoint or remove board and committee members. First, we have the Historical Preservation Advisory Committee. We have one vacancy on this committee. Ms. Gloria Victory has resigned. We are advertising this position on Channel 3 and on social media. We have not received any applications at this point. If we don't have any by Tuesday, this will be removed from the agenda. So if you would like to apply and you're watching this, please put in your application. Then we have the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee. We've got 2 terms vacant, and we have one vacancy and one that needs to be removed. Mr. Dylan Forbes was appointed at last month's meeting, and then since this meeting he has moved and no longer lives in the city of Laverne, so he will need to be removed. And then we have been advertising the vacancy that we have for that board on Channel 3 and on social media. So again, if you would like to apply, you can get an application here at City Hall or online and apply for that board. And then this is an FYI for everyone. The Planning Commission, we've got 2 terms that expire at the end of October. That would be Earl Garvin Jr. and Aaron Holliday. And they are going to be contacted to see if they wish to remain on the Planning Commission. It will be advertised on social media and on Channel 3. This is for information purposes only. This will not be on the agenda Tuesday night. And I make all appointments for the Planning Commission except for the Alderman position. With that, moving on to Alderman and Mayor comments. Alderman Waldron.
I want everybody to keep Gloria Victory in their prayers. She's a long time employee. She was involved in a traffic accident, and she's in the healing stage. And keep her in the prayers. Gloria Victory. Everybody remembers her. She's been here. I played there over 20. I know over 20 years. But keep her in the prayers and pets. I see going places that people's got pets on a chain. Make sure your pets has got fresh water and shade. I know it's cooling down, but the sun is hot. Make sure your pets has got fresh water and shade. And winter time is just around the corner, and it'd be a good time to start thinking about winterizing your house, outside water faucets, water hoses and stuff like that. Make sure that your crawl spaces if you don't have the automatic thermostat closed, you need to make sure they're closed. But it's getting that time of the year. Thank y'all.
Alderman Coates.
Good morning the other morning to have the groundbreaking for the dog park. It was a good morning. The question that was brought up to me was, do we have an idea of a opening date or timeline?
Mr. Leach.
Tentatively, we hope to have, everything kind of in place by next spring, or the coming spring. Tentatively.
Thank you very much. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Vice Mayor, no.
To piggyback, I had an odd question. A name for the dog park.
That is a work in progress currently.
Okay. The only thing I got to say is go Braves and tighten up.
I want to thank everybody who came out for Old Timers Day, for the parade, and the concerts. Friday night's concert was packed, very lively crowd. People were jumping up and down, dancing, having a great time. So that was a wonderful time. And then we had the parade. Most of the board was there. Parade itself was dry, but after that, the heavens opened up, and it was what it was. So we are building on to our next events. So everyone looking forward to October 22nd's Zombie Night at the Park, where there will be a costume contest, dance-off, and a movie at the park. And then the next day, on Saturday the 23rd, the Goblins and Goodies at the park from 1 to 3. Should be a lot of fun. If you would like to come set up a booth, feel free to contact Parks and Rec, whether you're a business or an individual. Again, bring the kids. It should be lots of fun. With that, call this meeting adjourned.